All right. Good afternoon or good morning, whatever you have going on. I'm here with my good friend Jeremy Toyer. This is the Pastor's Office. This is our inaugural podcast. This is an idea that we've had for a long time. We have a group of pastors in Jackson called the Cooperative. It's a small group anyway. It's Village Hope Church, Rives Baptist, Heart of the Lakes UB, and then Pathway United Brethren or Pathway Community Church. And we are the Cooperative. We look for ways to work together. And this is an idea that we've had for a long time, to have a sit-down, conversation-oriented format where we could invite people into the pastor's office just to have a chat together. And so we moved that idea to the back burner. We were waiting for a couple things that didn't quite come together. And so now here we are, trying as pastors to keep connected to our congregations, to keep connected to one another. And so we've moved that idea from the back burner to the front burner. And so here you are, the inaugural edition of the Pastor's Office. I'm here with my very good friend, Jeremy Toyer. Jeremy is just a very close friend to me, like personally, but also professionally. Whenever there's a situation that I'm not quite sure what to do, he's on the short list of people to call. Now, he probably groans a little bit every time he looks at his phone. He's like, Frederick, what does he want? What does he want?
That's not true. That's not true. I don't always have answers for all your questions, but I listen happily every time you call.
Well, that's what makes you a good friend and a great fellow laborer in the gospel. That's one of the things we're both very passionate about. Is making sure that the gospel message comes to the community of Jackson. So,
yep.
Jeremy, could you? And so here we are. This is we're having a pandemic. Kids are out of school. This is April 2nd. No April Fool's jokes here. This is April 2nd of 2020, and so we're talking about. Really, because your specific background is more in counseling than anything else. And so we want to talk from a counseling perspective about the global pandemic. So can you give me a little bit more about your background?
My background, I do have a master's degree in counseling, and I haven't worked necessarily full-time as a counselor, but I've used that counseling degree all throughout my 20 plus years now of pastoral ministry. First as a youth pastor and then as a lead pastor as well. And so there's all kinds of opportunity for counseling within pastoral ministry, as you're well aware. And so, as you're just doing life with people, as you're walking through life with them, there's counseling opportunities that come up. Some of them are formal, where somebody comes into the office and sits down and wants to have a conversation and about a specific issue. Some of them are more informal, just as you're as a pastor caring for your people, trying to help them, as I said, do life. Counseling opportunities come up there as well.
And your graduate degree is from Grand Rapids Theological Seminary.
It is, yeah, same school you went to.
I did. I did. Didn't I?
Another connection that we have. Although you went through a few years after I did, so. Yeah. Our time there didn't overlap, but we certainly knew some of the same people, had some of the same professors and that kind of a thing.
Yeah, probably one of our favorite things to do is sort of compare notes about, back in the day when we were at school. And I don't know that I think I did tell you this. One of our professors, Dr. Gary Meters, happened to see me online. We stream our services on Facebook Live. And so he happened to catch little glimpses of that. And so he sent me a note. He said, hey, send me your manuscript and I'll send you a critique.
Right. And I think I sent you a text. When you told me that, I sent you a text back and I said, gee, I'm kind of glad Dr. Meters and I weren't all that close when I was a student, because he doesn't do that now for me yet anyway. Don't turn him on to me or anything like that. Don't let him know.
It's already done, buddy. It's already done.
Yeah, great. Misery loves company, right?
I told Dr. Meters, I said, hey, I'd be happy to facilitate a Zoom call with you and me and Josh Gillott too. So I threw everybody under the bus.
Yeah, we should get. Yeah, it'd be like we're in seminary all over again with Dr. Meters grading us on our work.
Yeah, Dr. Meters was kind of famous for being the gruff, opinionated, direct, like a strong cup of coffee. But
yeah. See, and you don't remember. This would have been before your time. When I was there, he decided that he could run the seminary. And so he said, make me the dean of the seminary. I'll take care of everything. And that lasted approximately 1 year.
Mm.
and he went back to the classroom, which is really where his gifts and talents are better suited and used.
I learned not to fear the red pen because I knew that the red pen was Dr. Meters and all of our professors. That was their way of giving you the best possible feedback, you know?
No, that's true. And all of the guys, Dr. Meters especially, they had our best interest at heart. They wanted us to be the very best pastors,
Yeah.
theologians that we could be. That's true. But
Mhm.
it's a little intimidating when your seminary professor says, "Well, send me your manuscript for that sermon and I'll fix it up for you." Send it.
I sent him 5 sermons. I said, here's the context of what's going on. He already responded back with some good stuff.
Okay.
So we'll see if I have to go back to seminary or if I pass. I don't
They
know.
pull your
So,
degree.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So we're in the middle of this, or we're at the beginning of this global pandemic. There are a lot of people who are very concerned. People are having different responses to this. And so you've been in crisis with people, trying to help people through this many times. And so what are some of the things that you have noticed at the outset of this that are important for pastors and people to be aware of?
Some of the things that I've noticed. Tell me a little bit more where you're wanting to go with that.
So yeah, just who's called with a problem, you know? I know for me, I told you about a person who I actually have been in contact with 2 different respiratory therapists.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people who are going to be on the front lines of intubating and ventilating patients,
Yeah.
and just they're
Yeah.
really kind of scared.
Yeah, and I've certainly had we've got medical professionals that are, like, as you said, on the front lines. We've got law enforcement corrections officers are another one. I know of a correction officer that is he works on the floor where they have the quarantine patients.
Hmm.
And yeah, I get text messages from people saying, and a lot of times it's, "Please pray for me. I'm scared to go to work. Please pray
Yeah.
for me. I'm scared to go out of the house. Please pray for me. I don't know what to do." There's just this
Hmm.
overwhelming fear and that kind of a thing. And you and I were talking a little bit before we started recording this about the fact that this is going to, if it hasn't already, start to hit home as people we know, or
Hmm.
we know people that have passed away as a direct result of this virus. I had a conversation
Hmm.
just the other day with a congregation member who was upset, mad. I prayed that this person would be healed, and God didn't heal them. God ended up taking them, and the individual was grounded. He knew the right answers, but his emotions were not lining up with his heart. The head knowledge and the heart knowledge were in
Yeah.
conflict with one another. And we talked, for 30 or 40 minutes, and he hey, that helps. I understand. I mean, it's a process, but a lot of times it's just reminding people of the truth that they already know to be true.
Hmm.
Even though there's tension. We talked about Dr. Meters. Dr. Meters talked all the time about tension
Hmm.
between the what should be and what is in this broken, sinful world
Hmm.
that we live in. We read truth in Scripture and the way things should be, or the way things will be one day,
Hmm.
and yet we need to remind ourselves we live in a broken and sinful world where there is still sickness, there is still death, and unfortunately we're in a time where there's just a heightened awareness of that fact,
Yeah.
just because we're seeing it splashed across the front page every day.
I've been reading, speaking of seminary professors, Dr. Michael Whitmer, who has written a book called The Last Enemy.
Okay.
And The Last Enemy is a book about death. And so the opening sentence of this book is, "You are going to die." And then it's like, okay,
That's a great way to start out. That really
yeah.
draws you in, right?
Yeah, it's like, hey, wait a minute. The chapter is entitled Shock, and he intended to kind of shock people out of their complacency.
Sure.
And so I think it's a great place to start, to just kind of help people wake up to, okay, life is fragile. life is temporary, this life anyway.
Hmm.
And it really does bring us back around to our theology. This is where the rubber meets the road theologically, because we realize that uh, we have to deal with very hard things. I think we get spoiled as Americans. You go into the grocery store and you
No
can
doubt.
always have 5 different varieties of everything.
Hmm.
Well, but now we're having to deal with some shortages. Now, that doesn't mean there's no food on the shelves. Don't go out and panic buy toilet paper. However, life is fragile, and our theology addresses that fragility of life. And I
Right.
think, you think historically, when you start thinking back through time, this is not the first pandemic. This is not the
Not
first
at
time
all.
there's been an outbreak of disease that cost people lives. There have been many of those, and the
And
church has been around for them.
it's interesting too, as you go back in church history, it's times like these when the church has an opportunity to be the church,
Absolutely. Yeah.
that God uses that to draw people to himself. When all the pagans are running from the sick people, the
Mm.
Christians were the ones running to the sick people. They
Yeah.
were doing what Jesus did in his earthly ministry.
Yeah.
And I think too, we need to look at this as an opportunity to be the church that God has called us to be. You talked about, as Americans, we've become comfortable, and that applies to our church too, I think, a lot of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity for us to say, okay, we're gonna stand up, and we're gonna be the church. We're gonna demonstrate love to people. We're gonna use this as an opportunity to show people that we're different, that God
Yeah.
has changed us from the inside out. And we have a message of hope too. There's
Mm.
a lot of hopelessness, a lot of fear of death right now.
Hmm.
And it's a great opportunity to share the gospel, to tell people about what Jesus Christ has done for us.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's where, like in Dr. Whitmer's book, as he starts off with, "You are going to die," he points out how Jesus is the solution for your eternal destiny. That,
Hmm.
and just real quick, when I think about the gospel, I think about God, man, Jesus, response. This is not mine. It's from a book called The Gospel by a man named, I think Greg Gilbert is his name.
Okay.
That God is the creator and moral owner of everything. You and I would agree with that. God sets the standard. God decides right and wrong. And God established in the Garden of Eden that Adam and Eve were supposed to do certain things that they didn't follow through on. And so Adam and Eve, by their initial rebellion against God, broke themselves and broke the world. And so we would acknowledge that we live in a world that is broken, profoundly broken. And this
Yeah,
is just
no doubt.
further evidence of that, you
No
know.
doubt.
And so what Jesus did is he came to restore our relationship to God. By his death on the cross, he pays for our sin problem. And that brings us into, or gives us the opportunity to come into God's presence because we're forgiven of all of our sins. And the response that God requires that there is faith, that we trust him.
Absolutely.
And without, getting into the theological weeds, that's the most important message that we can really even talk about, because just in Dr. Whitmer's book, we are going to die. How are we going to deal with what comes next?
Right.
You have to come to God God's way. You can't Burger King the faith. You can't do it your way. You have to do it God's way. And so God's way is through Jesus and Jesus only. So
Amen. Amen.
yeah. So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to preach too much there, but I think it's important to keep putting that out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So as people are dealing with sudden changes and future uncertainty, what's kind of your go-to response there?
I talked with my congregation about this past Sunday, actually, and I gave them some advice from Matthew chapter 6, verses 25 through 34, where Jesus is talking about the flowers of the field and the birds of the air, and God takes care of them. And if God takes
Mm.
care of them, He's certainly going to take care of you.
Yeah.
And Jesus says each day has enough trouble on its own. Don't worry about tomorrow. Just worry about getting through the day. And so that,
Mm.
just some advice from that. Number one, I told my folks, I said turn off your screens. We
Ah.
we
Mhm.
we 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 fill our minds with so much information, especially in the midst of this crisis. We're tempted to,
Mhm.
we have the news on a little bit more. We're looking at our phones more. We're on Facebook, or Twitter or other social media. We go to Fox News or our other news outlet of choice, and we're just filling our minds with this constant diet of all the bad, crazy stuff going on in the
Yeah,
world.
the red number that keeps going higher and higher.
Right. All the worst things again. I said, just shut off the screen, whether it's the TV or the phone or the laptop or the tablet, whatever it is, just shut it off. Open the word of God. Go to Scripture for comfort. The Psalms have been a great comfort to me during this time. I shared Psalm 46 with my folks the other day about God is our refuge and our fortress. He's our safe space, if you will,
right,
where we can go during these.
Don't trigger me. Be careful. There's some trigger words there.
Well, you have a hair trigger. That is true.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. Anyway, so open Scripture and pray for one another. Philippians chapter 4 verse 6 says, "Don't worry about anything. Pray for things, and the peace of God that transcends all understanding will fill your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." And and that idea too of not worrying about take it a day at a time.
Yeah.
Don't worry about tomorrow. That you don't have the strength to make it through tomorrow yet. God hasn't given that to you yet. He's given you the strength to make it through today. Worry about today. When you get to tomorrow, worry about tomorrow. And so that to me has just kind of been an encapsulation of everything I'm trying to tell people. Let's not get carried away. God is still in control. God is still on the throne. There's nothing happening to us that He is not allowing to happen, not causing necessarily, but allowing to happen. And He's going to walk us through it. And whatever happens is going to be the best thing for us. It's going to be what He wants to happen for us. And so
I think there's tremendous power, and I think it's an unrealized power in many times. You as a just Christian man on the street kind of a thing, because I came from a career as a truck driver. So there is this tremendous comfort for people when you just tell them, "I'm going to pray for you."
Absolutely.
Yeah, that takes it out of the realm of the things that you can see, and you say, "I'm going to consult someone who has so much greater power and authority in this situation." And we don't know.
Very rarely, when you offer to somebody, "Can I pray for you?" Very rarely will they turn you down.
Yeah, very rarely.
That's not.
Yeah,
doesn't happen.
Yeah, and so you're taking this temporal situation that you really can't do a whole lot about, and you're taking it to a higher authority who can. If nothing else, God can help you take a step back, take a deep breath, and just keep moving forward through the day.
Absolutely.
I think I would piggyback on what you said, not to worry about things, to take it one day at a time, but then also just to say it's okay to prepare,
Sure. And taking it a day at a time doesn't mean you're not working ahead. Doesn't mean you're not planning. But just to understand, you can't plan everything either.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But you should be prepared. That is, yeah. I'm not saying don't be prepared, or else you won't have toilet paper. So
yeah, I was going to ask, how's your toilet paper supply?
Last I checked, we were doing all right.
Okay, good.
I do know my wife was planning a supply run here in the next couple of days. I don't know if toilet paper is on the list, but last I checked, we're okay. So
and you're not rationing it with the kids yet? Three squares.
No, we live with mostly boys, and so they don't care about that kind of a thing as the ladies do.
Right.
And our house backs up to woods, and so if we need to use leaves and that kind of a thing, it's not really too much of a problem.
So let's kind of focus our attention a little bit on kids. You're a father. You have 6 kids, 5 boys, 1 little girl, and they're still little. So how are you helping your kids kind of deal with this?
How do you deal with the kids? I think number one, it's important that we're honest with our kids. But there's a balance there to be struck too, in that, we don't need to give them every little piece of information and that sort of a thing. We don't need to worry them needlessly.
Right.
I'm always saying to Abigail, my wife, I want to be honest with the kids. but I also don't want, I want to let them be kids too at the same time.
Yeah. Hmm.
They shouldn't worry needlessly. And, my daughter, especially, she's a very social creature.
Mm.
And so she doesn't understand why during this, she thinks she's on like extended spring break pretty much.
Right. Yeah.
She doesn't understand why can't I go play with the neighbor kids? And why can't we have a play date with, our friends from across town and have them come
Yeah.
over? So you sit down and you explain the things to those kids in age appropriate ways.
Mm.
We have a 7-year-old and we have a 17-year-old, and we have every other year there in between. And so it's different layers with different kids.
Mm-hmm.
I never want to keep secrets from or cover things up
Mm.
with my kids, but at the same time, I also want to be very careful that I'm not giving them information that they can't necessarily handle and process. And so,
Right.
with the older ones, you have deeper conversations. With the younger ones, it's more surfacey, but at the same time, I don't want to keep information from them. I still want to be honest with them.
Have any of your kids, and I don't want you to out anybody, but have any of your kids expressed fear over this situation?
No, they haven't.
Probably because you're just an unflappable wall of confidence. That's who you are as a person.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. No, the kids, my wife and I do what we can to again, overuse the term safe space. Our home is a safe place for the kids, and they know that when they're at home, they're safe. And in the midst of everything else going on outside, I mean, my kids, thankfully, are still getting 3 square meals a day. And, we've tried to find a new normal. The younger ones are homeschooled. They're still doing school. The older ones, they've got a list of chores that they need to do when they get up in the morning to kind of keep them busy and keep them productive. We talk with our kids all the time about being producers, not consumers. And so we're trying to find ways to stay productive, to keep some semblance of normalcy and a regular routine in the midst of all of this. While we can't go out of the house. Fortunately, a lot of our kids, I told you my daughter is a very social creature. A lot of the rest of the kids are kind of homebodies anyway, and so staying at home for an extended period of time, it's not been that bad. Now we're only 3 weeks into this. There's still another month to go. Check back in with me in a couple of weeks. That might change. But
no, when your eyes start bonking around your head, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you might notice I'm working in my office at the church today, not my office at the house.
Right.
And there's reasons for that.
Well, I'm hiding in the library, so
I can see that. That's a lot of books you got there, man.
Yeah, this is what heaven looks like to me. This is obviously a green screen, fake background, but
there you go.
I think for us, we have a 6-year-old. We have a 6-year-old grandson who lives with us, and so he has had questions. Am I going to get the virus? Is grandma going to get the virus? Is she going to die? He has no concern for me as his grandfather, but he's very concerned about his grandmother.
Well, you see, grandma is the source of the food.
And yes, grandma is the source of food.
My house. They are all about mom because she provides the food. Even the male dog that lives in my house knows mom is the source of food. And so that's very important to a 6-year-old boy, no doubt.
Yeah, definitely.
But his wife isn't a wonderful person. I don't want to say that. I mean, she lives with you, so
she does. Yeah,
she's special.
She's obviously a saint.
No doubt.
I think for us, what we've noticed with our grandson is that his behaviors, like he's on edge, but he can't say, "I'm on edge."
Sure.
He can't sort of self-soothe or retreat or find a way to sort of manage his emotions, and so it comes out as being naughty. And so we have to kind of corral that and take a step back and realize for ourselves, it's like, okay, he's being naughty for a reason. He's cooped up. He doesn't understand why he can't go play with his buddies. He doesn't understand social distancing. He barely has barriers to begin with. And so just trying to sort of coach this little dude in a loving and gentle way. Hey, I know it's frustrating. Let's find something that we can do, pick up sticks in the yard or whatever, those kind of things. But so how are you managing your own stress at a time like this?
Yeah, that's That's a good question. I'm trying to find opportunities, to get out of the house a little bit. Um, if there's an excuse to make a supply run, I'll do that.
Hmm.
And even just getting out and being active physically as
Mm-hmm.
well. That's a great. I got out and worked in the yard one day last week when the weather was really nice. I've
Oh, I
gotten
should
out.
have called you. I had to dig up my septic tank. It was like,
Yeah, no, I was busy that day. Sorry.
really?
I really,
Well,
really.
I never made it out to help with your floor, so I
You
guess that's
didn't,
fair.
and that floor turned out pretty well. Don't worry, there's more flooring that needs to go down in other
Oh,
places.
good, good,
So,
good.
what was I going? Oh, working in the yard. We got out with the kids and played some basketball the other night. It didn't end exactly the way I envisioned that to. We took a family walk on Sunday morning. We got everybody out and got the dog and walked for a couple of miles. And so, getting out and getting some exercise, that is a great stress reliever. We've been doing some stuff with the kids. Like we've been watching, on Disney Plus, they've got this Clone Wars, I don't know, 6 or 7 seasons of Clone. We've been watching that together. That's just mindless. You can detach yourself from reality and just enjoy that for a little bit. But just trying to find little escapes here and there that you can kind of suspend reality for a brief time. Not that we put our heads in the sand or anything like that, but trying to detach a little bit with family usually, and just enjoy each other's company.
My wife has been cooking, so but
there's
by
a
the
lot of
time
that
this is
going on.
over, I'm going to be 600 pounds.
Yep.
And I think I saw on Facebook,
You're not flattening the curve, are you?
No, I'm fattening the curve. That's what I'm doing.
No, that's happening at my house too.
Yeah. So I think, for us, stress relief is just catching up on projects, doing the work. We're both kind of worker bees, so we trade off responsibilities with kids and stuff. And so trying to find ways to, and I know for me, it's kind of frustrating because I'm trying to work from home. But a lot of my work it's library work. It's, head down, hitting the books, trying to craft a good sermon, trying to manage, keeping up with people and all that kind of thing, trying to stay a couple steps ahead of things, and that takes some headspace. It's kind of hard to do that when a 6-year-old is asking you for the 8th time, what day is it?
Unfortunately, I'm beyond that age group with my kids, and so that's nice. But there are still days where, like you said, you're trying to get a sermon crafted, you're trying to do some book work, that sort of a thing, and you just need some quiet time, and it's not always there.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes it's me. Sometimes I distract myself. I'll be honest. It's not always him.
There's plenty of that happens with me as well. So,
so
what are you doing? What do you mentioned, trying to keep up with your people and that kind of a thing. What are some things that you're doing to maintain connections? I guess that's one of the things I've realized during this time of no face-to-face in-person church meetings. What are you doing? What are you doing to connect with people?
Probably spending more time on the phone, so Tuesday is kind of my administrative day. It's kind of like I divide my week up by days. Tuesday and Wednesday are more administrative, more catching up with paperwork and things like that. So Tuesday is the day where I just pick up the phone and start making phone calls. This week I was multitasking. I was texting people and doing phone calls at the same time.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of that too. And technology can be a real help during this time.
Oh yeah.
If this had happened 30 years ago, it'd have been a totally different story than it. I mean, even you and I we're on Zoom right now. That kind of technology didn't exist 25 or 30 years ago. But there's an old-fashioned vibe to it too, where you've got to go back to the phones. It can't just be the text messages. I called a guy. I was texting a little bit with him yesterday, and finally I'm like, I'm just going to call him. And so I called him. We talked for like half an hour. And when it was all said and done, he said, thanks for calling. That meant a lot. Because the text message is one thing. It's great. People like to know that you're thinking about them. But phone calls kind of take it to the next level. We're not used to that in this day and age, and so phone calls I'm finding can be very effective ways to connect with folks.
Now, have you noticed a difference kind of like by age groups? Usually with the older folks, it's definitely a phone call. You know, they like the phone calls, but with
I've
the
got
younger
I've,
folks,
I've got some people that don't even text. What one
wow.
at least one family in my church, they don't even have internet service at their house. Somebody told me that the other day, and I was, wait, what?
I did not know that you had cave people at your church.
Well, apparently we do. So, but yeah, but it becomes, when you realize that, it becomes that much more important to connect with. You can send email blasts, and we send videos out a couple of days a week to people, but that goes out via email, or there's a link
Mhm.
to YouTube or on Facebook. But I'm realizing there's at least some people in my congregation that I need to make that phone call for them to feel connected. And it is generally the older generation for which that's true. I've got some older people that are pretty hip though, and they're up with the times, and they text and they Facebook and they do
Right. Yeah.
all that stuff. They're not on Instagram or Snapchat or anything like that, but for
I was
old,
able to stop by one of my older members' house and teach him how to use Facebook so that they could,
okay,
because we're live streaming right now
okay,
for our church services. So 10:30 on Sunday, we're streaming live. Um,
yeah, I caught part of your service the other day,
oh, did
actually.
you? Great. Yeah.
Yeah, helped me go right to sleep. It was great. No, I'm just
Yeah. That's what I'm, you know what, if I can provide an opportunity for you to take a good nap, I feel like that is the Lord's work, you know?
well, I appreciate your ministry in my life, brother.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I think that's the biggest thing is just getting back to the phone, getting back to people, stopping by as little as possible. I know at Pathway, we have some older folks that I don't want anybody to get sick, you
No,
know, and I
no,
certainly don't want to be the cause of that.
certainly, yeah, yep,
Yeah.
yeah. But in a lot of ways, it's forced us to go back to the basics.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hmm.
I think, and there's a lot of talk too about just reminding us about the things that are important in life in general. But I think as a pastor, it's reminding me about the things that are important in ministry in general. It's not always about all the flashy technology. Sometimes it's just about picking up the phone and making
Hmm.
that personal one-on-one contact
Right.
with somebody, and pastoring that, shepherding them through a difficult time.
So did you want to share your cell phone number with everybody who's going to watch this?
Sure, sure. Yeah.
No, you
Let
don't need to
me
do that.
let me
I,
get it here for you.
I
Um,
would not do that.
you would not do, no,
No,
I'll give it
because
to them.
you never know.
Not a
Somebody would.
problem. It's area code 517
Mhm.
410.
That's my cell phone number.
Oh, whoa. Sorry. My bad.
Yeah.
Oops.
What's JP's cell phone number? We'll just
Oh,
spread his
yeah, we could
information.
share that. Where is JP? Is he's
You know, he had something come up. This is his
something.
thing. Something comes
Okay.
up, and he's
All right.
hopefully at the next edition of the pastor's office, we'll be able to have both Reverend Toyer and one of the representatives from Rives Baptist, either JP or Dyke, and maybe we'll even get Kyle Young or somebody like that from Heart of the Lakes. We'll be able to have a longer conversation.
That'd be fun. That'd be fun.
Yeah, well, I feel like we haven't exhausted the topic, but we certainly have give people something to stay connected. And I think, you know, just like every pastor at this time, we're trying to leverage technology to help people stay connected. So by
Right.
all means, call your pastor. You know, if you're part of Village Hope, call Pastor Toyer. Drop by don't drop by the office. Even though he's there, don't drop by the office. But definitely give him a call and let him know you're thinking about him. All churches right now are very concerned about how to minister to their people. You know, and that's true for both of us. It's true for everyone in the cooperative, everybody in Jackson.
And
We want to serve.
how to stay connected, I think, is the biggest
Yeah.
thing. How do we stay connected when we can't meet together? Our regular rhythm has been upset, so to speak,
Hmm.
our regular habits. And so we've got to develop some new ones to make sure that we're staying connected to each
Yeah,
other
definitely.
as a church during this difficult time.
Definitely. Well, hey, brother, thanks for coming out. Thanks for
Yeah.
joining me in the office.
Thanks
I
for
wish
having me.
I
Thanks.
wish this was my office. So, all right, this will be it. And God bless you all. If you're watching this, drop us a note. Just let us know that you saw it. Let us know if you liked it, don't liked it. Offer some critiques. We're okay with that. We are not afraid of the red pen because we've been to school with Dr. Gary Meters. So,
And he used it liberally. Yes, he did.
yes. All right. God bless you all. Bye-bye.